With something as significant in popular culture as Star Wars, there have naturally been multiple parodies of it in media. As something so beloved, and with such iconic imagery, it makes sense that the funniest minds have mimed comedic material out of those films, but mainly out of love rather than spite, and mostly with George Lucas's approval. So while we all anxiously await the release of The Force Awakens, here are my favorite Star Wars parodies to maybe tide you over. Mad Magazine. One of the most prominent satirical magazines of all time, the artists there have naturally covered Star Wars multiple times over the years. It begins with their brightly drawn covers, which successfully insert Alfred E. Newman into the universe. Of course, the writing and the thought bubbles are humorous, with a bite we expect from the Mad Magazine writers. But there's a lot of detail in the drawings as well that deserve to be praised. In classic Mad fashion, they've also done some light ribbing on the obsessive fanbase as well. One recent issue, celebrating the upcoming release of The Force Awakens, has a clever comparison between the old and new Star Wars fans. Mad Magazine has poked fun at Star Wars so much, there's even a book dedicated to their various parodies over the years. And with the new series of films coming up, there will certainly be many more in the future. Troopers. Created by the team at College Humor, it's about funny how they've captured the Death Star production design while also humorously tweaking the Stormtrooper and Darth Vader outfits, even though George Lucas has been shown to be very supportive of parodies. Taking the point of view of the Stormtroopers, I love this idea of turning that environment into a workplace comedy, with Darth Vader as the doting boss whose answer to everything is killing somebody. The interaction between the two lead troopers is great, and you cannot go too wrong with Aubrey Plaza from Parks and Recreation as Princess Leia. College Humor stopped making these a while back, which is a shame as this is one of the funniest series they've done. Monica's Gang in Star Warp. This might be a more obscure choice, but I think it deserves a place on the list. Casting the characters from the popular South American comic book series of the Star Wars characters is quite inventive in that regard. Having Cascong as Luke Skywalker and Captain Phao in the Darth Vader role was a particularly good touch. Like the main comic series, there's a lot of inventive meta humor, and befitting their roles as Han and Leia, Sybil Leia and Monica's back and forth is hilarious and captures their bickering in A New Hope immensely well. The colorful illustrations are impressive, with the background details all being fun to spot. The Monica's Gang team have done multiple parodies over the years, including Jurassic Park, Avatar, The Avengers, and Batman Forever, but this just might be their crown jewel. Unfortunately, it's only possible to read the English version by accessing the website through the archive.org Wayback Machine, but it's worth a read for any Star Wars fan and also anybody who enjoys foreign comic books. Darth Vader and Son, Vader's Little Princess. Created by Jeffrey Brown, these humorous little books paint Darth Vader as a father trying to deal with his young children, who we of course know as Luke and Leia. Aside from it playing with our perception of Vader, these books are also quite heartwarming. It's almost like an alternate universe, where Vader decided to take care of these two little rebels. Brown uses our knowledge of the Star Wars universe to create hilarious panels, and it actually makes Vader quite sympathetic as he tries to deal with his unruly children. There's simplicity to the line work that only makes them funnier, and it's clear how Brown tried to make these drawings as cute as possible. If you ever see these at the local bookshop, they're definitely worth a look. The Saga Begins by Weird Al Yankovic. I've already discussed this at length in my Weird Al Songs Countdown, but I'll briefly touch on this entry again here. Taking the song American Pie and using it to tell the story of The Phantom Menace was quite a novel idea on Weird Al's part, and it's probably one of the few prequel parodies on the internet that doesn't have some sass in it. Weird Al's lyrics tend to be very warm-hearted in their approach, and that's no different here. There's a sincerity to the way he performs the song, and in that usual Weird Al way, he's able to make it slightly catchier than the original song, and the music video is a lot of fun, too, with Obi-Wan Kenobi singing in the Cantina bar. On a side note, his song Yoda is also absolutely worth a listen. It's songs like these that make Weird Al Yankovic one of the most popular and respected song parody writers. How It Should Have Ended. One of my favorite animation channels on YouTube, it's not surprising these talented folks have covered Star Wars multiple times, and to hilarious effect. Certainly a highlight is the Return of the Jedi video, which continued the great gag from How Empire Should Have Ended, of Vader being excited about his children still being alive, and expands on that, particularly when he confronts Palpatine. And any swipe of that ridiculous decision to put Hayden Christensen's face at the end of Jedi is okay in my book. The Phantom Menace one is also worthy just for how they spoof the Senate hearings and playing with the perception of Darth Maul at the time. What makes How It Should Have Ended work is they mainly poke fun at how these would actually be silly ways to end the films. Of course, their superhero parodies are their strongest, but the Star Wars How It Should Have Ended videos are worthy, and I certainly look forward to any more takes they do on this franchise. The Phineas and Ferb Star Wars Special. When Disney bought Lucasfilm, co-creator Dan Povenmire drew a sketch of Dr. Doofenshmirtz as Darth Vader, and unbeknownst to him, Bob Iger was going to ask him and Jeff Swampy Marsh to make a Star Wars special, not unlike how the gang in Danville met the Marvel superheroes. Povenmire Marsh took an interesting approach by presenting it as a side story in that universe, and even answered precisely why Luke was so intent on picking up some power converters. Seeing Candace as a stormtrooper is particularly hilarious, and of course, you could never go wrong with Perry doing battle with Doofenshmirtz. And what's more, the original characters are all well portrayed. The writers are even allowed to poke fun at the more sour and controversial parts of the franchise, including the Han shooting first argument, and of course, you can never go wrong with mocking Jar Jar Binks. As both a Phineas and Ferb and Star Wars fan, this was a worthy part of both series and a fantastic welcome into the Disney family. The LEGO Star Wars Specials. LEGO has been involved with the Star Wars franchise for a long while, making both toys and video games. It's not surprising that television specials were commissioned, and they were hilarious, featuring the sort of humor expected of LEGO from their multiple tie-in products. These were not afraid to go silly and goofy, and while they may not have gone the realistic route, the figures that the LEGO movie later did to superb effect, the specials still understood these were LEGO versions of the beloved characters they were using. The Padawan Menace was set during the prequels and had a lot of fun utilizing a young Han Solo with all his mischievous ways, while The Empire Strikes Out shows the consequences of Luke Skywalker being a celebrity. The background detail also provides additional laughs, as the team behind these specials managed to pack a lot of great joke material into 30 minutes. LEGO just seems like one of those companies who produces gold of almost everything they touch, Star Wars included. Star Warners. The series finale of Pinky and the Brain, this mixed all the Animaniacs characters together wonderfully with the story of the first Star Wars film, with the next 2 chapters thrown in for good measure. It's got that great humor we expect from these shows, and like the Monica's Gang comic book I mentioned earlier, managed to perfectly pair the characters. I love how it continues the theme of the series by having it set on the Warner Brothers lot during the Tatooine scenes, and throwing all sorts of references to Hollywood. The cast of Animaniacs is so funny here, you can enjoy this without even watching Star Wars. As a late bloomer to George Lucas's work, that certainly applied to me when this episode first aired. The hijinks of Pinky and the Brain trying to take over the world were quite unique here, as they mixed it with the Star Wars storyline, and having Brain be in the R2-D2 role makes it even funnier. The amount of cameos also makes this a fun one to pause and try to spot all of them. This is further proof of why these Amblin-produced cartoons were and continue to be animation and comedy gems. And my favorite Star Wars parody is Robot Chicken. From the twisted mind of Seth Green, Robot Chicken is able to take elements of popular culture and skewer them in a way that makes sense and without reaching for jokes. That multiple Star Wars specials are no exceptions. Featuring their rubbery stop-motion figures, they are biting in their humor while clearly showing a love and knowledge of the franchise. It helps that George Lucas is a huge fan of the series, and put a lot of support behind them, including guest starring in a sketch where he's followed by obsessive fans. Certainly some of the best bits involve Boba Fett and his taunting about how great he is. The depiction of Darth Vader is also a highlight, as is Seth MacFarlane voicing the Emperor. They even take inspiration from Clerks for a hilarious sketch involving the construction workers on the Death Star. Ahmed Best was also able to voice his derided character Jar Jar Binks in a brilliant take of the character where he comes back to torment Anakin when he's all turned to the dark side, and we finally see that he hated Jar Jar as much as the rest of us did. I honestly cannot think of a single part of these Robot Chicken Star Wars specials that are not hilarious and creatively put together, and the team behind them deserve to be called the creators of the best Star Wars parody. But tell me, what are your favorite Star Wars parodies? What was that? Oh, why wasn't Spaceballs on here? Well, it's enjoyable, but I personally feel the funniest bits are actually the general science fiction spoofs rather than the Star Wars related jokes. But hey, if I ever do a countdown of favorite alien parodies, Spaceballs is definitely #1. And with that, I'll see you next time, and may the Force be with you.